You are listening to When Veins Meet Like Rivers. Katinniq, okizata, maadawaan. The podcast expanding on the meaning and behind-the-scenes creation of the exhibit by the same name, hosted by the Plug In ICA. It's a podcast about survival, desire, and kinship. It's about the places where we crash and flow into each other. It's about how and what we resist and submit to. I hope that you enjoy our offerings.
Well, I think, Dana, you must have met Adrienne first.
Okay, so I feel like there's a couple of times. I just remember distinctly the first time that I saw Adrienne was in the basement of the photo department at Fitzgerald at the U of M. I believe I think I was a year before Adrienne. So, and they were coming up, and I just remember, I think it was a photo critique, or you were doing something in the dark room, and it was like a lot of like darker sort of looking photographs with like legs. It could have, there was somebody was like dressed up in one of the photographs, and I remember kind of like, I don't know if there was a lot of like blacks and kind of like interesting weird photo processes going on. I don't know if it was you photographing your sister or it was something very abstract. But I distinctly remember thinking it was like you in the photograph, but I'm pretty sure this is when you were probably working with your sister a bit or something like that. That's all I remember. And also being like, who the fuck is this person? And having like a little baby crush, being like, I want to, like a friend crush, some sort of like crush that like I wanted to know more about who this person was. And somehow fast forward like to my final year in thesis, Adrienne was getting rid of their studio on Albert Street, and I jumped up at the opportunity to have like I really wanted a studio at that point. It was like kind of 2009, 2010, somewhere around that point. And I think I can't remember if maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Adrienne, did I get the studio after we worked together? Like, because I ended up asking you to be in my photographs at that point. But I feel like I have this photo of me sitting on a chair in that studio with like super white blonde hair at the time. And we were kind of like, you were passing off that studio to me, and I ended up shooting a lot of like naked people in there, which was really fun. But I think it was sometime after that I eventually then asked you and your sister to be in that Bad Girl series that I did. And that was kind of like really the kickstart to our kinship, was essentially being like, okay, this is the only way I know how to make friends, is to invite them to be in my art. So that's how I remember it. And then obviously, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
No, and then obviously seeing Adrienne and their sister at like Stella's and wanting to talk to them, but also like not knowing which one it was, because it's so funny. Now I know exactly, but at the time you guys had the same haircut even, and you didn't have you didn't have tattoos back then, because that was over 10 years ago. So you guys, it was like, when people I think first meet you, they have a hard time discerning between, but once you like meet you guys, then you're like, oh yeah, who's who.
Yeah, definitely. We get that a lot. Yeah. Oh my God. Throwback. You're now like, because I feel like my memory is also so bad that I'm like unearthing all of these memories. Like I forgot completely that I passed the studio on to you afterwards. And, but yeah. And anyway, I can go on, but yes, that's amazing.
I think it was studio and then photograph. I think that's how it happened. That was kind of my gateway in. I was like, oh, this is your studio. And then we kind of like chit chatted from there. I got a photo from a BlackBerry. A BlackBerry photo.
Wow.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
And I almost feel like then almost in some ways like reconnecting is like not us meeting again, but years and years later moving to Montreal, it's like it's almost like we had met in a different phase of our lives or something,
Yeah,
which is really cool too.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that was like that reconnection was essentially being like, there's this rack in Ottawa that I want to go get. Do you want to come for a ride? And like I rented a van and we drove to Ottawa, and I got this huge caribou rack from this art guy at Le Petit Mois that was I coveted. Like I loved this rack. It was a beautiful, huge rack, and he was just selling it for 300 bones, and I was like, let's go get that. And that ended up being the rack that was on the cover of Canadian Art. That was Adrienne's rack. So there was that intention there. Like I think that it was just like, who wouldn't like, who wouldn't want to go for a drive and pick up some antlers, right? So, and then
Yeah, like 9 o'clock on a Sunday. It was such a random time. I loved it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was so nice to bring that back.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really remember like how you got into my world, like probably through Dana and like through Yaz and so on. But I think like one of my first memories of you is I invited you over, and I feel like we ate caribou, and it was like extending teeny like friendship wishes.
I feel like we sang karaoke in your bedroom after that.
Oh, that sounds so
And it
right.
like unearthed this, yeah, right. And then it like started this whole relationship of us revolving, I shouldn't say started, but like nurtured this like karaoke relationship.
Yes. And still when I hear your karaoke songs, it's like they're your songs. Like,
right?
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I don't remember where we met. Probably in the lab. Wait, no, I did remember. You were working for Heather Goliorte. Was that you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how we met, in the lab, or in a lab adjacent world. And then there was like beading circle situation, I think. And that's, I think, where we started hanging out. And then we went and got ramen.
Oh yeah, for lunch one day. I remember that.
And I was like, people, I need people to eat with. Yeah.
And it's funny because I used that space as like an office, which was technically not my office, but I used it so much as an office space. And it was like every day, like one of us would kind of crawl into someone's studio space and kind of just like linger around for a while, because you're bored and want to like move your feet and go bother someone. So it's like often, it was really nice. I missed that actually a lot.
I feel like one time when I went to visit you at Concordia, Kite's hoops were in the room, and then you were like talking about hooping together. And I think that I wasn't friends with Kite yet. And I was just kind of like, I wish that was me too.
And look at us now.
Yeah, back when I went to the gym. Amazing. Rare.
Le gym.
Le gym. Le gym.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Adrienne?
Right. Yeah. Buju and Denawe Maganadog, Anin, Dibigikisis Wapagunikwe Indishnakas, Mikinakando Dem, Gojiching and Dunjaba, Nisquagami Witsibing and Dao. Hi, I'm Adrienne Huard. I am an Anishinaabe. I'm a registered member at Couchiching First Nation, close to Fort Francis, Ontario, so Treaty 3 territory. I don't know, I'm a two-spirit, non-binary femme. I am a curator, writer. I'm a PhD student at University of Manitoba in Native Studies. I'm also a performer, pole dancer, burlesque, erotic performer. And I also have a curatorial collective called Gajit, which is alongside Yaz and Morgan, who we all know and love dearly, and Dana's kind of a peripheral member as well. And we mostly focus on Indigenous sex, sexuality, and gender. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm also a Leo and Turtle Clan. So.
And you wrote us a beautiful exhibition text. And
yes, I did.
You're going to share it with us.
Yeah. Here I go. I just want to say it was such a pleasure to write this text. It really, I was worried I was feeling a bit too cheesy, but I was sitting in my feelings one day thinking about how much I miss you guys and how far we've come and how many years and moons that have, how many moon phases we've been together. And so anyway, sitting in my feels, here is my exhibition essay for When Veins Meet Like Rivers. So, the meeting of two rivers, the Red and the Assiniboine, remains central to the formation of Winnipeg. It has been a place for trade and gathering for Indigenous networks and subsequently settler traders for over 6,000 years. When Veins Meet Like Rivers embodies the convergence of Indigenous nations coming together through the artworks of Oglala Lakota artist Kite, Inuk filmmaker Sinayak, and Métis Soto Polish artist Dana Danger. Through these pieces, they call and respond to one another, sharing an intimate bond that replicates the group's ongoing constellations of kinship. Communicating through variations of sound, the frequencies of these artworks flow through each other while surpassing physical connection. They share reverence for non-human relatives by conveying interconnectedness of rivers, stones, pathways, and shores, uniting their forms of relationality through these entities. Asiniak's installation, Cradling River Peace, displays a video performance by the artist on a hanging screen, challenging and accepting the river's current as a fabric waterfall spills onto a bed of cranberries on the floor. The sound score titled Submit and Resist speaks to the delicate balance of fighting or giving in to something and how the water and land emulates that. By using sound and frequency, the artwork calls to the other pieces in the exhibition, spurring energetic communication while engaging with each other's presences. Danger's performance piece and remaining ephemera titled To Submit, to Resist, to Submit, to Resist, responds to this frequency by using songs, drumming, and the soothing sounds of a rushing river. Their work honors the four directions while questioning accessibility of spaces and how we position ourselves in relation to the sunrise and sunset. They set a precedent on consensual and reciprocal relationships within these environments. Meanwhile, in Kite's installation, Iron Road, she tells a visual story of a prominent piece of her family history. Her great-great-great-grandmother who escaped the Wounded Knee massacre on foot. Using drone footage of her family's trust land layered with thunderstorm imagery and Lakota symbols, Kite's artwork responds to Danger and Asiniak's pieces while demonstrating the significance of collaborative storytelling, dreams, and language in conjunction with the importance of the land that carries us. Collectively, the group signals to profound care while maintaining dialogue with one another through sound, song, story, and language. The title of the exhibition not only pertains to the meeting of rivers as a gathering place and knowledge exchange, but it also points to the ways these artists physically put their bodies into their artworks. The interconnectedness of these pieces linked to their physical and spiritual affiliation for one another, like veins that flow between each other. It signals to the lives that continue to flourish despite carrying the weight of colonial trauma. And while their ancestors come from different nations, they are all experiencing the same detrimental symptoms of settler colonialism. However, the trauma is not what bonds them. Instead, they simultaneously present imagery of rocks along shores and pathways that represent their generational ties. The river represents veins that are very much alive and still flowing, acknowledging the strength of past and future ancestors. In conversation with the artists, they all agreed that When Veins Meet Like Rivers goes further than solely participating in a group exhibition. It's a meeting space that signifies years of growing alongside one another. It demonstrates intimacy through visual ties while finding ways to support each other through grief and colonial trauma. It is the physical and spiritual responding and calling to one another. It's the behind the scenes of checking in and sharing, of maintaining fruitful kinship that feeds everyone and the gifts they bring to this world. It defies Western individualist ideologies and rather carves space for each other visually and spiritually, encouraging their own Indigenous cosmologies that facilitates profound relationality. This exhibition enables a gathering space that visually feeds visitors, inviting them to witness and participate in an environment that harbors relationality between human and non-human kin through frequency, sound exchange, song, and language. There it is.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. Oh. That part that got me was like us like flowing together, like and like grow and like grow.
Growing. Thank you so much for the words.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you like it.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Miigwech.
Like you always say, it pets my heart.
Like, why does kinship have to stab my heart so violently? Oh, it's so good. I blame Kite. You're the ferocious one. I love it.
Oh, we're still waiting, Dana. You have to I have to send you that photo of us so you can Photoshop Kite into it.
Oh, I know.
Okay, we have a present coming for you.
It'd be even better if you took a photo of yourself with a bleeding, like a really nice photo, a full body photo of yourself with a bleeding nose. That would be like chef's kiss. Yeah. Just saying.
I feel like especially what really got me with this, and I feel like I've been expressing it for a while. Like I know that, we all live apart and we all have big things going on because, you are all so talented and, needed in this world and everyone's busy. But I guess one thing that the pandemic especially, made me realize is like how valuable kinship ties are, and like how there are very few relationships in this world that will understand like just the impacts of colonial trauma, or even just us sharing space in the same room and us growing alongside each other in very new and beautiful flourishing ways. And but also like life is really short. Like that's what the pandemic has definitely revealed for a lot of us. And so it's like these kinship ties are invaluable and they're so precious, and so yeah, I guess that's why I was so honored to write this.
It really resonates too, because I feel like we've all really like we came together at such a beautiful specific moment where we were all kind of like orbiting around each other, and then all of a sudden our orbits aligned, and we were all pulling each other in, like, okay, we just tried to find kin in a place where Sometimes that isn't always like easy to, because it's maybe for some of us, it's not our hometown. I know it is for Sinayak, but not really, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just because you know, we're also from multiple different places that we claim. And so it's like, when we make our homes wherever we go, it's really amplified by the people around us that are uplifting us, you know. And I just remember, like, I have such fond memories of just all of the different interlinkings and like the different times that we go out for dinner together. And, you know, you would make a plan with one, and then all of a sudden you're inviting all the other, you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of naturally would happen. Or, you know, or you have your intentional time and they're like, okay, we need the rest of them, like, just to get the gang together, you know. And I just see us like, yeah, just these little orbits around each other. And also just, but through that, like through the food and the laughter, we really like uplifted each other and like really were rooting for each other. And you know, in a world that often doesn't give any credence or space or positivity to the ways in which we want to work and how we want to do things and like what's important to us.
I think something that you wrote, I was thinking, I keep turning over the relationship between water and stones and people, and like, I don't want to say it's like a universalism or something, but I think that they're thinking about like, yeah, water, blood, antlers. It's like what they are. I think that your essay reminds me that these are not metaphorical. They're not symbols or metaphors. Like, they're treated in other right pieces of writing. Like, I imagine, like, I can imagine lots of people writing this text that aren't you and don't really know us. But considering these objects as not objects, but as like our blood and as like absolutely necessary for communication between us. There's something in that is very epic. I don't know. Important.
And I'm thinking, this past week, talking with my partner, this like realization that they came to, that like a love language that's like not in the love language chart is this love language of space, and like giving each other space to like do our own things, be our own people, and like come back together like with love, I think, is also another really special thing that we have and that I really value.
It's so funny how often you can feel like you're the nail that sticks out, that you don't quite fit. And yet I feel so unabashedly like myself around, like with yous always. Like, when a Sidayak is like reading me for filth or, you know, and just like trusting me, like just trusting that even like, Kite, even though you're not here, you were so here in that moment. Like, it was so funny when you start talking about the Noshomis, our grandfathers, for us, the rocks. You know, I went to go to this spirit bath with a good kin of mine, Jeffrey McNeil Seymour, who I do a lot of two spirit work with as well. And we went to this spirit bath off this highway, went on your way to West Vancouver. You know, everyone's ripping by, and we just pull over, and there's like a bunch of wild blackberries there, and we go in, and it's just the bath is so loud, like the water is just so loud, it drowns out the traffic. And then I remember I got naked and went to go to the spirit bath, and this rock like just like pokes me right in the butt. And I look down, I'm like, okay, you're coming with me. And just like all of a sudden when you're looking, like just the reverence that that your community, your ancestors, like those are our ancestors. And like just that reminder from your people of just that importance. And like all of a sudden they just started really coming up like often. So, I just all of a sudden had to start, putting tobacco down and like bringing them with me because they were saying something, even though I was like, what are you trying to say? Which is hilarious because then I got probed by my moose antler during the first performance that we did as well. So I just keep getting, the ancestors just keep getting frisky with me. And I'm not sure what that means, but I blame it all on yous, all of yous. It's just so sexy to be like with the, just like on the land and with kin, and just like to be I think what I'm trying to say is just like when you can just be yourself and share those stories, it's just it's incredible. And you just, sometimes I don't even know if I would have ever noticed that, or if that would have ever started speaking to me if those sort of conversations or even that work, started. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something I was thinking about, which is a concept that we've kind of, I don't think we've talked about it in a while, and maybe it's just moved out of there's been different discourse in talking about art and ceremony and like religious concepts. And because I feel like this group of people, and hey, someone might listen to this podcast and think we're all just like totally out of control, and they probably already think we're out of control as artists and Indian women and femmes, and bad girls, bad gals. It happens. But first I was thinking about how actually, I always think about this, how miraculous it is that we know each other. How, not to be very dramatic, but it's miraculous that we lived long enough to meet each other. And it's miraculous that we all got educations and met in that way. It's miraculous that we all have jobs. It's not a coincidence that somebody gets a job and then somebody else, and then I started this PhD, and then hopefully, I don't know if I made it look good or easy, but other people around me now decided to get PhDs, but something happened. Something's in the water. But it's possible. But then it's just like, I mean, I often think about, rocks are special because they're intelligent, and because they're so much older than us, and they're like, they've seen for a long time. And that when a rock does poke you in the butt, that's also miraculous that you even if spirits aren't real and it's all in our heads, it is insane that you come in contact with this million-year-old object at any moment in time. It's mind-blowing. Same with the rack, same with other humans, and same with making art. So it's cosmic, and it's very odd and unknowable and unperceivable. But I think, I guess I haven't thought about the intersections of like ceremony and the edges of that in like a few years now. Actually, I stopped worrying if art was ceremony, or if I needed to put a big fat line, because it just started to blend so intensely. But with this exhibition, it's like, I'm not like, it blends it so much further that it kind of like came back and poked me in the butt and was like, it is extremely sacred to collect rocks. It's extremely sacred to be told a story, to be gifted stories. The stories that my family gave me in that recording are extremely sacred, and and being resisting an entire river, like, it's stuff like that it's mind-blowingly time scale wise.
It's also when you're talking about that, I'm realizing like the rocks perform like that score all of the time. And I was also thinking about Adrienne in your writing. One of the things that I really loved was when you were talking about like the rivers and the like water coming together and like our ancestors being with us. And it also was always like mind blowing to me, or I always like have a moment of like kind of being taken aback and like maybe being humbled when I think of like when we come together, how many like people we bring with us and are also coming together. And it like, I think I don't think about it often, but when I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, so much power, so much compassion, so much like so many beautiful things coming together.
I want to follow up what I said before after hearing you say that is that I wanted to thank you all for taking risks, because if you know, Adrienne, you've had jobs and taken on jobs that are super risky and hard and have brought us all up with you and have like, you know, together. Like I think that when I met you all, it was like the first time I was around other artists who like saw that or made it clear in their actions that when you want to succeed, everybody has to succeed together. And completely, like even if you don't agree 100% on everything, or you have different paths or different relationships to institutions, it's like there's no getting up in this world in our positions without each other to like take really hard risks, like moving to different countries and taking jobs and sticking with jobs that are really training us, and you know, moving across the country over and over, and offering to a three-way exhibition and for your solo show. Like that's a huge risk. But yeah, it's great.
I guess that's also made me realize, at least, you know, with some of my curatorial practice and also with writing and seeing, like, even within our, you know, kinship ties or network or however you see it, is that there's so much collaboration that it's, at least for me personally, has felt like the most beneficial or the most satisfying or the most, you know, beautiful things that have come together are almost always through those collaborations instead of solo. And so, you know, I guess that's kind of responding to what you said, Kite, about how you want to see other people succeed. Otherwise, you know, what is that saying? You're as strong as the weakest link kind of thing. But it's not as self-serving as that. It's just that you want to see your community, your kinship, your people grow with you and get to some of those places, or have, you know what I mean? Like, it's, what I'm saying is that collaboration, co-authorship, thinking alongside one another, or thinking alongside one another, I should say, has been the most beneficial and the most like nurturing, you know? And so I guess that's sort of how I feel, is that all these times that we come together and create and think and write and make have been, for me, have fed me spiritually and emotionally, you know? And I don't think I get that from a lot of other facets of my life, you know?
That saying, you're only as strong as, or a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, is like one of the most cliche sayings that like actually like I think about all the time, and is like so true, and actually like motivates me in a lot of the work I do to like think about community, work for community, and like try to be a good person and help other people.
Yeah, I think that's what reminds me of the, you know, especially in Dana and your work. One question that I keep coming back to when I do workshops is is like, what does my teenage self need? Like the most, one of the, like looking at like one of the most risky parts of Indigenous life, which is being a youth. You know, like what did that person need? And I think if I had been able to Google Lakota art and see myself and be like, wow, cool, you know, like school is cool, tech is cool. Yeah, but I think that that's one thing that, you know, when I see, like, maybe we're not like perfect role models, but we're very, but I think that if I was like 14, 15 again and looking at, you know, like stumbled upon Dana's work, or Adrienne's cool Instagram, or just like, you know, been like, oh wow, like I have a place in the world, and yeah, and all that, you know, like all the academic stuff is great and all, and it makes me a living, but being an artist, like that's what's like so cool about getting to be an artist. Like we get to like be whoever we want to be publicly, and loudly, and yeah, it always confuses me when people's practice, I don't know, I can't imagine not being an Indigenous artist, but like it confuses me when I'm like, don't you, like, who are you making this for? And I think that's great about your guys' work, and I see it's so clearly for like our younger selves and our community.
Absolutely. Like I'm always sad whenever a Sinayak goes off Instagram because the fire memes that come from that one, like legendary. The fact that, you know, like no matter what any of us touches, it turns to fucking like bannock grease or something of that. I'm like, what is more important than gold? You know,
Gold
also
cut
culturally,
beads.
gold cut beads. Yes. Turns to gold cut beads. Let me tell you about that, you know? But it's also like for me, I also think about like, I am nothing without my community. Like I am like, who am I? I think I really struggled in art school because so much of it was about the self. And all I wanted to do was like hang out with people and like do cool shit. And like now that I'm like, oh, you could actually like do that and have a practice out of it. And like, and this to realize that actually like us making kinships, working with each other, stuff like that is like totally attainable and doable. And like it's so much, for me it's so much more interesting too. Like I'm just, you know, and just when we get to riff off of each other, and I don't know, in those times of myself where I'm so unsure, you know, especially within those lines of, you know, those dichotomies that are often like thrown at us as if I give a shit about institution versus ceremony and stuff like that. It's just like wherever I go, I'm taking that ceremony with me. Like you can't stop it. And, you know, this is my way of processing it because so often I've been erased from these spaces, from ceremonial spaces, you know, from institutional spaces. I'm like, who's going to have me, you know? And then, but my kin are going to have me, and they make it possible for me. Like, that's who I really want the validation from. That's who I really want the finger snaps from, you know, because then it makes me want to do that more, just like knowing that, when we all just get to be and really just get to carve that way for ourselves, because I feel like there isn't one way to do it, and we're really challenging that. So it feels so damn good, man. You know, when it's just like, it's the best kind of affirmation validation that you can get is when somebody is like, yes, I want to be in a photograph of you. Yes, I would love to, you know, to help you film this. Yes, I, you know, when somebody's giving you that consent to be that, you know, that to me is like, okay, I feel like I'm on the right path. I'm going in the right direction, you know. And that generosity, like you can't forget that, you know, when somebody's giving you that, I'm like, okay, now what can I do in offering, you know, and that reciprocity, because sometimes a lot of people, because they want, because they want to call this kind of shit nepotism and stuff like that. And I don't even like to speak that name into existence, because it's just like, that's some like white institutional shit. Like, that's not how we even want to have our systems, like our own governance systems of how we want to relate to each other. We're figuring that out, kind of like between different communities. Like, we all have very different worldviews, uniqueness to us. It's not this like pan-indigenous, because that totally erases like so many of us. Like, we have the big trifecta in the room, in the house. And so, and how do we all work together? Because we're not all the same. We're not a monolith. So, and we're breaking that down like one kinship at a time, like, really, and making that space for us to be able to think about that, to challenge that. Like, I love to see other folks so seated in themselves, and that inspires me to want to know, to do that work for myself too, and not to like copy you, but to be like, okay, well, how can I invest in myself to be that better person, so I can stand with my kin in that same way. And it's like, yeah, like, I don't want to be I'm not a role model. Knock me off that pedestal. I want to be on the ground, everybody on the ground together, our feet in the earth, like our feet on the earth together. We don't, no one's higher, no one's lower. We're all on that same sort of like playing field, and we all have different skills and different mindsets, and we're all bringing that together. I mean, living in Jojage and Haudenosaunee territory, that really taught me that, like, and now our minds become one. It's all of that we all have these pieces, and we all fit together to make that puzzle. And maybe that puzzle looks like a fucking disaster. Uh-oh, did I glitch out? Right I was like, that was a great tagline, and it got fucked.
Is there a more perfect note to end on?
Dysfunctional pieces of a puzzle, and I'm here for it. Yeah. Name a better end line.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of your life.
Miigwech. Thanks for including me in this process, you guys. It means a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's go have some fish.
Thanks.
When Veins Meet Like Rivers is hosted and recorded by Katinniq, Dana Danger, and Kite. Additional guests on this episode include Adrienne Huard. Our intro and outro song is an original score produced by Kite. Podcast art by Katinniq. This podcast is presented by Plug In Institute of Contemporary Art. You can find a link to the Plug In website in our show notes. We are produced by Collective Broadcast Co., an artist-run collective specializing in tech and live stream solutions. You can find the link to their website in our show notes. This episode is supported by Plug In ICA's generous donors, including the Directors Circle, Canada Council for the Arts, the Manitoba Arts Council, the Winnipeg Arts Council, and MB150. It's a great day to be Indigenous. Bumma peace.